of poop. This is the most popular question people have when going glamping and glamping hosts who want to set up a glamping site. Where does the poop go? Now, most of our discussion today about the different structures have been really about the safety of the structures itself, talking about the building department and whatnot. But there's another department that you need to be aware of when building your glamping structures, and that's the health department or Department of Health in your state, your county, or municipality. They are genuinely concerned about the safety of your guests based off of poop. Where does the poop go? They want to know. And honestly, you want to know too. Now, I've had both my feet on each side of the off-grid and the on-grid worlds. And I'm firmly convinced that trying to go as on-grid as possible is the more profitable way. Even though it's more expensive, it does bring more returns in your glamping operation. Let's be honest. People want hot water. People want a flushing toilet. They want a hot shower. That's the way it is. And to do that, you need to have proper septic and drainage systems for your poop. In April 2023, I had a commercial septic tank installed, and it was quite the project. $46,000 is certainly not a cheap venture, but it allowed me to have a really bougie shower and refillable tubs in some of my units. The bottom line is that my top rentals have been on-grid units. Now, to me, that's letting the market guide me, but I would not have been able to afford that on day one. And that may be where you're at. Back in my early days, I bought relatively inexpensive privacy tents off of Amazon, put a camping toilet in it, and used some shower bags, and it worked pretty well. The campers who were coming to glamp figured it out. It wasn't all that bad. It was a cheap solution, and it was sufficient to where I was at the time. I later discovered Davis's Royal Thrones. They're very spacious, heavy canvas tents that have poles in them rather than those cheap pop-up tent poles, and they didn't weather under the sun like those nylon tents did. And I placed a Cabela's commode in there, these really awesome camping toilets. And I still have this solution for my off-grid tents down at the creek. I'm not able to put a septic tank or some toilets or a real bathroom down there. Some have wondered if the health department had a problem with the camping toilet. They didn't. I mean, it kind of defies conventional thinking, but the health department doesn't really think about the actual poop. They don't. They think in terms of their code. You see the similarity when it comes to government, don't you? They're concerned about enforcing their code. So for them, it was heads on beds, counting the people. What is your occupancy rate? And that's what determined what kind of septic tank I needed. My septic tank is built to withstand 32 full-time occupants daily for 365 days a year. Now that's a ton of poop. Everyone knows that my usage will be just a fraction of that, but the health department does not care. That's the max, so they expect the system to meet that max. So for my off-grid tents, I have a shared bathroom they can walk up the hill and use, and that satisfies the health department. It's the way they think. I've known some glamping operators that get into deep arguments and discussions with the health department about how little a poop their actual operations will use, and I've never seen them convince the health department to minimize their maximum capacity. So knowing that helps a lot. And another thing the health department gets into is your use of hot tubs, or any pool for that matter that uses chemicals. You see how that goes? The pool that uses chemicals, if it's used for commercial purposes like you're doing, they will want regulatory control over that. This is why that oftentimes, and us included, are shifting to tubs rather than pools. In fact, one of our extras boasts about a chemical-free hot tub that we will provide for you for an extra fee. Now, to the guests, they think it's groovy that they get a chemical-free hot tub. Good, they don't want to sit in somebody else's stuff. But do you see how that satisfies the health department's concern? We used to maintain our hot tubs with chemicals and chlorine and all this stuff. It's very hard to do, and pH levels, it wasn't easy. But the health department let me know that needed to be regulated, and that included permits and phone calls and discussions and visits that I didn't really want to go down. So I adjusted. I just provide chemical-free hot tubs. And we've also dabbled into troughs, and they can be filled up and enjoyed, and then they can be emptied. No chemicals involved and no health department involved. Now, this isn't that much of a big issue for properties that are more out east, but out west, it's water. Water rights is a big issue, and drawing water from your well is actually a legal issue out in the western states that I've had to hire a water lawyer to help me understand how the water rights and things like that. However, this is something that I was just naive on early on. I had thought I needed to drill a new well on my property in order to get the water out from the ground, to have water in my bathrooms and for my glampers. Not true. All I needed was a permit that allowed me to draw the water out of my existing well. That infrastructure I really didn't need. I just needed the permit. Now, the permit required me to hire a lawyer. I suppose I could have figured it out myself, but boy, that stuff is Greek to me. I don't enjoy talking about water law. So I have a lawyer out of Denver who helps me navigate the ins and outs of water law. I got my permit here on this property, and my other property, I'm in the process of getting that permit. Water law takes a long time to get approved, so the county has allowed me to proceed with my development without having the actual okay. Much like the health department, they have their algorithms. They have their mathematical formulas that they plug in to make sure that the water won't deplete the aquifers here. And also like the health department, it doesn't matter if they don't use the water. We don't draw the water. I can argue with the water courts till I'm blue in the face that my glampers will drink more wine than water. And it just doesn't matter. They look at occupancy level and they plug it into their numbers, and either you meet their requirements or you don't meet their requirements. Now, on the good news side of that, I have found in my county and in my state that the water law has genuinely gone to my favor. I'm not a campground. I'm not a hotel. I'm a glamp ground. I give people their space. There's not a lot of people on my glamping sites. And that argument has satisfied the water courts, and I've been able to get the permits I want for my wells. Oh, the things we can talk about when it comes to structures and setting up our glamping operation. I hope it doesn't seem too complicated or overwhelming. Because man, oh man, once you have those structures up and people are visiting your property, it's a lot of fun. Now, next week, we'll get into property development for your glamping operation. Zoning, financing, land acquisition, regulatory compliance, infrastructure planning, environmental considerations, community engagement, and more. We're building safe, legal, and profitable glamping operations on our property. Next week is going to be about that legality and utilizing that land to the best of your ability in a legal fashion. So I'll see you next week, my glamping friend. Take care.